You've worked the same job for 11 years. Same title, same desk, same parking spot you claimed in your second week, and nobody's ever contested. Warehouse Operations Coordinator for a regional beverage distributor. $52,000 when you started, $58,000 now, which sounds like progress until you realize that's less than 3% a year, barely keeping pace with the price of everything else. You've asked for a raise twice. The redirect started with your old boss, a guy named Terence, who managed the warehouse for 19 years before he retired to a lake house 2 hours north. At your going-away lunch for him, someone asked what he was going to do with all his free time, and he said, almost as a throwaway line, that he wasn't worried about money because he'd been buying the same handful of dividend stocks since he was 34, and at this point, the dividends alone covered his mortgage. Both times you got a version of, let's revisit that next review cycle. And both times, the review cycle came and went without anyone revisiting anything. You stopped asking after the second time. Not out of defeat exactly. You just redirected the energy somewhere else. Nobody at the table followed up. It got lost under a sheet cake and someone's story about a delivery truck that caught fire in 2016. But you remembered it. Not because it seemed exciting, because Terence drove a 12-year-old Silverado and packed his lunch every single day for 19 years, and none of that matched the sentence he'd just said out loud. You didn't do anything dramatic. You didn't quit your job or read 40 books on investing. You opened a brokerage account on a random Thursday night and put in $500, the first extra money you'd had sitting around since a small tax refund came in. You bought shares in 3 companies you actually understood because you dealt with their products every day at the warehouse. A beverage company, a consumer goods company, a utility company that served your own house. You didn't pick them because they were exciting. You picked them because they'd been paying dividends for decades, and you recognized the names on the truck manifests. Every paycheck after that, you set aside $150 automatically the same day your check landed, before it had a chance to become grocery money or gas money or anything else. Some months it felt pointless. $150 buying a fraction of a share here, half a share there, numbers too small to mean anything on their own. You didn't check the account much. There was nothing dramatic to see, just small deposits, landing on schedule, and small amounts of stock accumulating in the background of a life that otherwise looked exactly the same as it had for a decade. 2 years in, you get your third rejected raise request, this time phrased more carefully by a new manager who talks about budget constraints this fiscal year, in a tone that makes clear this isn't really a conversation, it's an announcement. You nod, say you understand, and go back to your desk. That night, you don't feel the sting the way you used to. You open your brokerage account instead. Not out of any strategy, just habit at this point. And notice for the first time that the account has started paying you back. Dividends, small ones, $22 here, $11 there, showing up quarterly without you doing anything. Automatically reinvested into more shares because you'd checked a box 2 years earlier and forgotten about it. You increase the automatic transfer to $200 a month after your car loan gets paid off, treating the freed-up payment as money that never really belonged to your regular spending in the first place. You don't upgrade the car. You don't move to a nicer apartment when your lease renews at the same rate for the 4th year running. Your coworker Danny, who sits 2 aisles over in receiving, leases a new truck the week his own raise finally comes through. A nice one, chrome package, and talks about the payment like it's an accomplishment. You don't say anything about your account. There's nothing dramatic enough yet to say. By year 6, you're contributing $300 a month, bumped up gradually as small cost of living adjustments trickled through, redirected entirely instead of absorbed into lifestyle. The account has grown past $40,000, more than half of it from dividends reinvesting into themselves, compounding in a way that's completely invisible day to day, and only obvious if you go back and compare screenshots months apart, which you occasionally do, mostly out of curiosity rather than excitement. The dividend payments alone now run around $140 a month, money that shows up whether the market's up or down, whether you got a raise that year or not, whether Danny's truck payment went up because of a rate adjustment or not. Your annual salary review that year gives you a 2.1% bump, $58,000 to $59,218. You do the math almost automatically now, the same way you used to check gas prices, and you realize your dividend income alone grew by more in dollar terms that year than your raise did. Nobody at work knows this. There's no version of the conversation where you bring it up. It's not the kind of thing that translates at a warehouse stand-up meeting. By year 11, the same year you're sitting through another modest raise conversation, this one landing you at $61,400, your portfolio has crossed $210,000. The dividend payments alone, reinvested automatically for most of a decade, but now increasingly left as cash by choice, run close to $700 a month. You do the comparison you've done privately a dozen times before, but this time the numbers land differently. Your last raise added about $27 a week to your paycheck. Your dividend income, sitting quietly in an account nobody at work has ever heard about, now adds more than that every single week without you lifting a finger. The company holiday party is at a rented hall off the highway. String lights, a rented DJ, the same sheet cake vendor Terrence's retirement lunch used. Danny's there with his wife, still driving the truck, still making the payment. Someone brings up raises, the way people do at these things after a drink or two, complaining good-naturedly about the same 2% everyone's gotten for years. You listen, you don't say much. Someone asks what you've been up to outside of work, expecting the usual nothing, and you almost give the usual nothing back. Instead you say, you've been investing a little. Dividend stocks mostly, nothing exciting. Danny asks how that's going, half interested, mostly making conversation. You tell him it's going fine. You don't tell him the number. Some things don't translate well over string lights and a rented DJ, and you've stopped needing them to. You drive home that night, past the same intersection you've driven past for 11 years. Same job, same title, same modest raise sitting in your next paycheck. Nothing about tomorrow looks different. You'll go back to the same desk, the same parking spot, the same manifests with the same beverage company logo you first recognized on a stock ticker 7 years ago. But somewhere behind all of it, quietly, without a raise, without a promotion, without anyone in that rented hall knowing a thing about it, the part of your life that isn't your job finally started paying you more than the part that is. What happens the year it doubles again?